Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fall Line with KS and Company. Been a little chaos going on. Angelo and I have had a few texts back and forth, and I see you're having some of the frustrations I always have, Angelo, with, when we have people putting a lot of their students up on the hill and probably not on the terrain they should be, probably a little too steep. And I remember your text to me saying, do I have staff that are back skiing and holding people's hands and poles and kids between the legs? And yeah, I see it, and it frustrates me too.
Yeah, I call it over terraining. It's probably a made up word. I don't think it's in Webster, but people do it to themselves. You see it all the time. People on terrain they shouldn't be on because they don't know any better, or they want a thrill. People do it to their friends. People do it to their kids. We get a lot of parents come and they're like, well, my kid can ski everything. And then inevitably they're like, because we go, and then there's like this big dramatic pause out west.
Yes, right. They didn't tell you. They just skied the beginner hill out there.
Right. Or and then you get them and a lot of times it's a big power wedge, or if it's a snowboard, it's just this big scrapey side slip, down steep terrain. But, that is what it is. But a lot of times I see instructors do it to people also. It doesn't jump out like that when an instructor's doing it, but I feel like the results can be, maybe not physically as bad. It's not as physically dangerous, but the end result is a lot of times folks don't come back for a second try.
Yeah, we've been struggling right now. We have lack of terrain, as I think everybody does. And we do have our Snowbelt Learning Center, which has a big jump. I mean, it's at Attitash, it's a big jump to go from one to the next, which we do all the time. And we've got to give them some skills and stuff to get it done. But then we're jumping up to some really tough intermediate terrain. We have no green terrain accessible right now from our learning center up. And some are making some choices trying to get there and having difficulty. But we see it anyways, even when the green train's open. When do we make that jump? How do we know? And I'll be honest, I'll just put it out there. We're not, as a group, as an entire group, my staff, your staff, everybody's staff, they're not giving them enough tools in the toolbox to get from one step to the next. And it's like, well, they're able to do this here now pretty good, but they're not doing enough there to make sure they can handle the energy, the pitch, the different surfaces, the different times of day. And we've got to find a way to have everyone try to give more tools before they move.
Yeah, I think we can do that. There aren't a whole lot of resorts where the teaching terrain is ideal. I think there are definitely more resorts where, instructors could legitimately complain about the teaching terrain. So that's not the point here. And I know that it gets crowded. Like I get that. Like I get all those difficulties, but I also see sort of a unidirectional type of thinking in a lot of lessons. And when I say unidirectional, like I mean downhill. Like I see a lot of instructors, if it's a ski lesson, putting people in a power wedge, standing in front of them, holding them back with their hands. I see people in a power wedge and the instructor bent over, holding the tips together. I see snowboard instructors walking backwards and not providing a light hand for someone to balance on. I mean, like both hands holding somebody back so they don't careen down the hill. I see parents holding back little tiny kids with leashes. And if they let go of that kid, that kid would be a rocket ship going straight down that hill. And there are other directions to go, but I don't see a lot of movement across the hill. I don't see a lot of traversing in beginning lessons. I don't see a lot of traversing in more advanced lessons where you have some more options. I don't see a lot of movement up the hill. And, then you can go up diagonally and you can go down diagonally. So there's just a lot more directions you can go. And there are a lot more techniques to teach people than a wedge on a pair of skis or a side slip on a snowboard.
Yeah, today I was at the hill all day today, and traffic midweek is awesome. I love teaching midweek because I could take the staff when I was out with them, or, if I take a student out, we were doing a lot of stuff across the hill today, but not a lot of traffic coming downhill. Now, come this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, that's going to change a little bit, but hopefully the thing I think when they get into Saturday, Sunday, can they take what they were doing across the hill, and you can still do it maybe one ski length, two ski lengths across the hill. You can't go the 20 ski lengths we were doing today because it's too traffic, but can they utilize some of that, even if it's just in between turns that the traverse is just two ski lengths? I think we get so much into just straight down the hill, like you're saying. They forget that what can you do if you're a midweek coach and weekend, you can still do some stuff. You're going to modify, but the weekend crew definitely doesn't have the advantage of like, just, hey, there's no one coming down for 5 minutes and I can go back and forth across the hill with 4 people for 5 minutes with no one coming. And you don't have to use the whole hill. Use 20 feet when it's even low traffic. Don't use the whole thing. But we need to think about I think the skills that are involved there. I think what you're trying to get at is like at the end of the turn, you're trying to get people to traverse so they can feel the platform in that downhill ski. So that is it slipping or isn't it slipping? Can they get into why we're doing it? Not just that we're doing it. It's not about can they traverse the hill? Can they be able to get the ski to engage the snow? Can they step up the hill? So they can get the center to move to the inside. I mean, those are the things I think they need to focus on. And I don't think they're focusing enough on in straight runs and just on the beginner hill to like stepping out of turns. And can we get more of the whole crowd on the snow belts and the magic carpets to go sideways across the hill versus everybody going downhill? I mean, if we get more people moving across the hill on that little snow belt area, you can do a lot more with everybody. But you see everybody pointing straight down the hill. Point down, brake. Point down, brake.
I think you and I right now can give instructors some tools, to avoid the, even though there's not much pitch in the beginner area, avoiding the power wedge in the beginner area is vital to get people independent and coming back. And I think one of the most important tools an instructor can have is the ability. And if they need the permission, here's the permission. I'm giving you the permission. All instructors around the world, I'm giving you the permission to look at your students as you're skiing with them. And if you see, looks of fear, if you see like overly contorted, non-athletic postures, if all you see is the snow between your skis because you're bent over holding their tips together, let's just take a moment and think about that. And I think this is the litmus test. Is that person being independent? Is what you're doing getting that person toward independence? Or are we building fear? Or are we building dependency? And if the answer to either of those questions is yes, then we've got to do something different. Yeah. Like we have to give them something different. Snowboard instructor last year, I was riding up the chair with him, said that one of the best thing that I've heard, it was so simple, it was so profound. There was a lesson coming down. It was an instructor and a little kid, happened to be a ski lesson. The instructor's bent over holding the little kid's tips together, and the little kid really couldn't see over the instructor's back. And the guy who was on the chairlift looked at me and he said, neither one of them is skiing.
Right. And
I thought, wow, that's profound. 2 people sliding down the hill, neither one is skiing. And so I think that, what is it? That withedness to actually take a look at your students, what's happening with them. And if what you see isn't getting that person toward autonomy, getting that person toward being an independent slider or rider, I would back off the terrain. I would rather see somebody shuffle around independent for an hour in our beginner area on a totally flat piece of terrain than lean on another person, lean on an instructor for an hour. I would rather see the independence than the dependence.
Yeah. If I think we need everyone to look at what is skiing. And for all of us, it's different. For us, it's like when we go out free skiing, I mean, when we're at the bottom of the hill a lot and we're teaching, all of a sudden we go, I want to run for me. And we go up and, whether it's our bump run or whether it's a black diamond groom, we want a big cruiser for GS. But for these folks coming in, it's just sliding. I mean, all we're doing up there is sliding. And if they, especially those students that have poles, stay in the flat area like you're saying, use the poles for propulsion to get some momentum on the flats. There's your straight run. You don't even need a hill for a straight run. You just got to get some momentum and you got to get them. The more we can get people to skate and move foot to foot independent, and it doesn't have to be beautiful skating. we go way too much for perfect performance on our beginners. We try to get them to skate like they're going in the Olympics or something. They're going to be some ice skaters, speed skaters around the corners. It's like we just need them to move foot to foot. We need them to somewhat try to be able to roll the ski onto an edge to get some grip in that skating move. And if they can't get from the skating, a slight hill to hike in terms of, and I mean, barely a hill. I mean, we see, how many people do you see trying to get on the magic carpet and snow belts, and they can't even get the ski to grip enough there in a herringbone to walk up under the belt. They're just sliding and their feet are going back and forth in the shuffle. I mean, that right there alone says, okay, maybe I need to go off them for 5 or 10 minutes, try to get them to be able to like hike, because they're killing themselves just getting on the belt, frustrated. So yeah, I think that more time, and it doesn't have to be 1,000 miles an hour. We still got to pace it and make sure we go with that component that we don't kill people. Because a lot of people come with us that they haven't been getting in shape and all the fitness stuff we've been talking about. They're fit on the couch.
You brought up another piece of it too, which is the external pressures. The people purchasing the lesson have an expectation. The parents have an expectation for their kids. The stuff is expensive. I also think as teachers, we feel a pressure to get people to reach a benchmark, which we kind of deemed as success, which in my experience is, going up the chairlift after the first lesson. But that isn't realistic for a lot of people. And I think it requires us to reevaluate how we define success for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And that success needs to be celebrated. I mean, I remember I skied, and wasn't skiing, it was on a board. I've been on a board before. I'll admit it.
Wow.
I know you want me to get on it more often, but
I'm blown away.
and I got on there with one of the guys that was on our ed staff, for PSA's our Aussie staff. And we did like 6 little tricks with the nollie, the ollie, all that stuff, standing still. And he made it fun before I even had both feet locked into the board. And we need to do more of that to have some fun and celebrate sliding on a pair of skis and trying to step around the corner. And, those kinds of, I mean, even though stepping around a corner, we don't think it's a trick. I mean, for some folks it is, to try to be able to even pick their feet up. I mean, it's hard for them even to pick a foot up, and we need to celebrate those things and somehow make them a little more fun versus just, we're going to get you up the chairlift and down. I mean, we know they all want that.
One of the expressions I don't hear too much anymore around here, but I don't know if you heard or not, bag of tricks, and I'm not into tricks, but I think we need to broaden people's technique base. And so, wedge, gliding wedge, change up, that's one thing you can do. But traversing, doing a carved traverse that makes, pencil line edge in the snow that goes up the hill. A smiley face traverse, I sometimes call it, forward or diagonal side slip rather. One-footed wedge, using traversing on the uphill ski and wedging with the downhill foot is a great brace. I mean, is it ideal center line? No, but if it's going to hold somebody back from slipping down a pitch, use it. I mean, I'm sure I use it,
I bet you used to.
Well, when we go out west.
I was just going to say, when you were at National Academy, I guarantee you.
Yeah, right. I was using it.
When you rode that tram at Big Sky and you came down out of the tram, I guarantee you did some of that. Right. You were bracing like a bugger.
Yeah. And right on. and you know what? I'm here to tell you about it today. But, and then traversing with a one-footed wedge with the uphill foot is, you turn that uphill foot, put a little pressure against it, all of a sudden that'll change your direction for you. It's very, very easy segue into a turn. Yeah. And I think, an effort there to broaden some of the other techniques you can use with folks when you're teaching them how, and people at home, reach out to your training staff and ask them for some of those things. If you're not familiar with them, and if they're not familiar with them, reach out to us, man. I'd be happy to explain some of those techniques to folks. If it A, makes their lessons safer, makes them more fun, and gets those people to come back for another crack at it, because that's what we need.
Yeah. And I think there's 2 things I want to say before we sign off, because we're doing a quick one tonight, folks. We wanted you to get this one quick. We're going to pop it right out, but we're going to probably put a bigger one to this and some more thought into some stuff for one of our next podcasts with this and the terrain challenges and overtraining. But two things. One is the things you were mentioning, Angelo. They just download our exam guide. I mean, the level 1 tasks that we have in there for the level 1 assessment activities are just with the things you were saying, that those are the educational tools and that's why those things are there for the level 1. We have them do that because we're hoping they do those things with their students, like the crab walks in there. And then the other thing is that I hope is the big thing. And I think it was within what we talked about tonight is movement. Allow the students to move, allow them to walk, give them more time moving. We just had a really cool dude on here that can ski pretty darn well and coach pretty well and is on the national team, Mr. Eric Lipton. And he was speaking about the time that somebody actually moves in a Learn To lesson. And it's pretty sad if someone only moves 4 to 5 minutes in an hour lesson. You might not think so, but if you time, that's what Eric was saying. Time how much you let your students move, how each person, how much time are they actually getting to move and to move their body parts to make the skis work? And I bet you it's nowhere near, like he said, it's nowhere near what we think as teachers that we're not letting them move enough and play. And we need to do that.
That's good stuff. And I would just like to reiterate the idea of independence. When you look at your students, use that filter, please. Are they being independent? Are the things you're doing with them getting them toward independence? And if the answer is yes, keep going. And if the answer is no, let's make it so it is.
That's right. We'll get it going. We'll keep it working. I'll let the staff know they get to listen to the podcast tomorrow.
Right on.
All righty. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you like this little quick hitter.
Thanks, man.